All right, Island Guy here, and I thought I would take a few moments and share a super sweet attack strategy with you guys, along with some tips on the things that have worked well for me in using it. So, what I'm going to talk about today is called it's a GoLaLoon, Golem, Lava Hound, Loon attack. It's a two-phase attack strategy, and what it's been called is a inverse GoLaLoon. And the reason why is because you, unlike the normal GoLaLoon, where you use the majority of your spell composition in the second phase, with this way of doing it, the inverse, you actually use it during the first phase with the kill squad. There's a couple reasons why that is, and those will kind of become more apparent as we go through this a little bit more. But essentially, what it is you're using 2 golems, 2 lava hounds, 20 balloons, 6 wizards, and 3 wall breakers. And for spells, you're going to use a heal, a rage, 4 quake, and a poison. Now, depending on whether or not you know what's inside the clan castle, you can change that last one up and maybe utilize haste instead of poison, but it's always a good idea just in general to take the poison. Now, for the first phase, for your kill squad, this is where you're going to use the golems, the whiz, the wall breakers, and your heroes. And the main objectives for this first phase is to take out 2 air defenses, and to engage or take out the clan castle and the archer queen. So kind of depending on the level of your heroes and how difficult it is to get to those air Ds, you may not be able to do all that with the kill squad, or maybe you can do that and more. Just depends on what you're using again. So what you're going to want to do first is to drop your golems. So you're going to pick the point of the base where you're going to enter. You're going to drop the golems, spread them out just a little bit, not too far, but just make sure that you try and engage as many defenses as possible when you drop them. After the golems are down, you're going to want to start dropping your wizards to clear any of those outlying structures. Now, this is where some of the kind of baseline fundamentals of using these types of strategy are going to come into play. And even if you're used to or familiar with using things like, Goho or just like standard Go Wipe, you know that you want to clear out those outside structures so that you prevent your troops from walking around the base. And in this case, it's just as important, because the thing you're going to be concerned about walking is your heroes. If your heroes start walking around the base, you're going to have a real bad time. The attack's not going to go the way that you want, and it's definitely not going to have the result that you want. So I flank on the left and the right side for wherever I'm going to be entering the base, just a little bit out to make sure that I clear enough structures to prevent those heroes from walking. So this is something you'll be familiar with once you've utilized these types of troops, enough to know where that distance is or kind of how much room you need to create. You only have 6 wizards, so you just want to be mindful of that. And what I do is I start from the furthest structure from the point where I want to enter the base on both sides, and I drop the wizards furthest out first, and then I'll move closer and closer in to the point where I'm going to enter the base. The reason for that is to make sure that those outside structures start falling in a way that allows you to drop your heroes and again prevent them from walking, so they're not seeing these outside structures that will distract them. Another good thing by doing this is that you can allow for a little bit of extra time, so that if your golems are having a hard time, or your wizards can't get to those structures, maybe those defenses weren't able to target the golems and they're targeting some of the wizards, you can still recover. It's still not the end of the world, and you can drop the heroes and they can help finish off any of those remaining structures towards the center where you want to enter the base without the worry of them taking a long walk. So for timing wise, after I drop the wizards and they start firing on those structures, that's when I drop the wall breakers. Two things you want to be mindful of with dropping the wall breakers is both any defense that causes splash damage that's close enough to the wall, like wizard towers, and timing for mortar fire. So you want to make sure that you don't drop your wall breakers at a point where they're going to get to the wall just as a mortar drops, and they're going to be useless at that point. Punching that hole into the wall is pretty vital to making sure that you're successful at taking down those two air defenses, because once that hole is punched in and the golems start entering, those structures will start falling on the outside, and then all those troops will start falling behind the golems. The wizards, the heroes will start falling behind. And once they enter that first compartment, that's essentially where you're going to utilize that quake spell to open up any dividing wall between those two air defenses that you're trying to target. The goal is to take out those two air defenses within phase 1. That's one of the main goals. Some of the other stuff you can skate by not doing, taking out the archer queen, the clan castle. It can still end terribly for you, but you can still be successful by not doing some of those things. The air defense, however, will annihilate phase 2 if you don't take them out. So you'll drop the quake to separate, take out those walls so that those two air defenses are open, and then this is where your spell, the rest of your spell composition comes into play. You'll want to make sure and use a heal on the golems, and hopefully at that point the heroes and or the wizards are close enough to where you can get as much of them into that heal as possible. But you'll want those golems to keep tanking for you so that they'll continue to absorb a lot of that damage and leave the rest of your troops to clean up any of those outside structures and things like that. Now, at this point, this is where you're gonna have to make a judgment call on where you're gonna utilize that rage spell. So most commonly, you've triggered the clan castle by this point, and those troops are starting to come out and meet your kill squad. And a lot of times, depending on how the base is laid out, you've most likely engaged the queen at that point too. So I use the rage at that point to take out those clan castle troops and or the queen, depending on what I'm facing.